The reason your home isn't getting offers probably has nothing to do with price or not as much as you think. I know that's not what your agent told you, and I know that's not what you want to hear if you just did your third price reduction. But after 26 years of watching purchase transactions fall apart from the mortgage side, I can tell you the price is almost never the first problem. The first problem is usually something nobody in the transaction wants to say out loud. So today I'm going to say it. All of it. But before we get into the list, I need to give you the lens that makes everything else make kind of a little more sense. Buyers today are not just shopping for a house. They're shopping for a payment they can live inside. And when that payment is already stretched, their tolerance for every single little thing on this list goes to zero. A buyer approved for $1.2 million is doing the math inside their head before they even finish the tour. Mortgage, property taxes that will reset at purchase in California, insurance, HOA if there is one. The Zillow number they're looking at is not the real number, and buyers, they kind of know that now. So every flaw they find, every compromise they're being asked to make, they're running it against that full payment, not against the list price. So when that math doesn't clear, they just leave. They don't argue. They don't explain themselves. They just kind of disappear. And your agent reports, hey, it was great traffic. That's kind of the frame. Keep it in mind for everything that follows. The number one reason buyers reject homes is location. This isn't new information. What is new is how seriously buyers are taking it now. I have buyers that drive by a property before they even book a showing. They're not wasting a Saturday on a house that backs up to a freeway or sits under power lines or has a school right next door. These buyers, they've done the COVID math. They've watched people pay anything for anything in 2021 and then spend years dealing with what they bought. And they are not doing that. Busy road, power lines, industrial park nearby, commercial strip at the end of the street. They all used to be negotiable. You knock a little off the price and someone would just kind of live with it. That's not what's happening now. When the payment's already heavy, buyers don't accept location compromises. They move on to the next listing. And here's the piece sellers miss. If your home has a location issue, the feedback you're going to get isn't going to say that. Nobody walks through an open house and tells a listing agent, the street's too busy. Maybe some do, but they just mostly don't come back. They're silent. And that silence is the feedback. Same house, same street, same square footage. One sells, one that just sits. The difference isn't usually what the buyer sees when they're standing in the backyard. Buyers, they're not really good visualizers. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a buyer standing in the backyard, no privacy, no landscaping, nothing done to work with what the space has. They won't picture their Saturday there. They'll probably just picture the neighbor's garage. Now you got that other house, same lot size, same limitations, put in some trees, added some screening, made it feel like a place you'd actually want to be. That buyer probably pictures their Saturday there. The buyer makes an offer, but it also works the other way too. When listing photos make a home look like something it isn't, buyers show up already disappointed. That's a hard position to recover from. That backyard, the curb appeal are not cosmetic concerns. They're either offer generators or offer killers, depending on what you do with them. These two go together because they're both versions of the same problem. The home, it doesn't fit the life of the buyer who's trying to live inside it. No main floor bedroom means the buyer's in-laws can't visit, or 3 levels means the groceries are a huge workout. Step down living room, step up kitchen, half landing to the primary, and suddenly you feel like you're training or just to get a glass of water. Buyers are standing in these homes doing their quiet lifestyle math. The more specific the floor plan problem, the smaller the buyer pool. A home that works perfectly for one family and completely wrong for another, it's not a price adjustment situation. The right buyer probably exists out there, just the price has to match the size of that pool. Problem is, most sellers heard a number from their agent before anyone had an honest conversation about how specific that buyer pool actually is. In Southern California, this one definitely probably ends the tours. Buyers want a place to put the dog. They want a place to put the kids, even though the kids are probably going to be on their phone inside the house. They want to be able to have people over and not feel like the neighbor is sitting at the table with them. Privacy is not a luxury feature here, it's an expectation. And when that's not there, the payment math gets worse because now the buyer is mentally adding what it would cost to create it. Small backyard, no privacy, today's payment. That's a very easy no. They don't need to talk each other into walking away. Buyers today, they're not just looking at your home. They're looking at their future repair bills. Old roof, original HVAC, windows from a previous decade, foundation questions, deferred maintenance that's visible before they even get to the master bedroom. Every one of those line items becomes a number in their head, and that number gets added to the payment that they're already nervous about. During the crazy times of COVID, people bought whatever was in front of them and just kind of figured they'd deal with it later. And a lot of them are dealing with it now. That one experience is sitting in the back of these buyers' minds now when they're walking through your door. And here's the piece that sellers consistently misunderstand. Buyers, they don't hate projects. What they hate is paying finished home pricing for a home that needs meaningful work. When the down payment, closing cost, first year's insurance, property taxes have already cleaned out their liquidity, that buyer standing in your kitchen isn't being difficult. They're just running the actual math. And that math, it's just not working. This is where my job really intersects with this conversation directly. And it's the piece that nobody is explaining clearly to the sellers. California insurance costs have changed the all-in payment for buyers in ways that weren't true just 3 years ago. You've got a home in a fire risk area that, coverage is pulled back from insurance companies. And it's definitely a different purchase than it looks like on paper. And the smart buyers, they're calling their insurance carriers before they even make offers now. And when that insurance number comes back higher than they modeled, some of them just don't come back at all. Property taxes work the same way. In California, assessed value resets at purchase. So the taxes the current owner is paying is not the taxes the buyer will pay. Then you have Zillow, Redfin that really probably don't account for this. So a lot of buyers figure this out midway through the process, and it changes their numbers significantly. Combined, these two numbers can add hundreds of dollars a month to a payment that was already at the edge of what the buyer could justify. And sellers almost never know about it because no one in the transaction is required to tell them. So if you're selling, you should know what the realistic buyer's all-in monthly payment actually looks like on your home. Not the mortgage number, the real number. That information changes how you price and how you negotiate. Buyers are doing more homework before they even book a showing than they were 2 years ago. They're checking days on market, they're looking at the price history, they're reading the descriptions carefully. And when a home has been sitting, the first question they're going to ask is what's wrong with it. Most of the time, the answer is going to be price, but sometimes they dig a little further. It could be limited showing window signals, a difficult transaction, sold as is language signals a seller who's checked out. These are not always deal killers, but they do require some trust before the buyer even walks through the door. And most buyers today probably aren't going to extend that. One really big thing, presentation matters before the showing. The listing itself is the first impression. Not every buyer who walks through your home is in a position to write an offer. Some need to sell first, some are pre-approved, but they're just not ready. And some are 6 months away from a financial event that makes the purchase possible. The last reason buyers walk away is the simplest to understand, and it's also the hardest one to fix. They have a list: open floor plan, home office, specific bedroom configuration, privacy, yard size, location, parameters. They built this list before they started looking. They are not compromising on the things at the top of their list. When they say it checks all of them, it's usually coming fast. There's going to be two agents. There's going to be the one agent that tells you everyone loves your home. They're just not giving you useful information. Versus the agent who tells you which non-negotiables your home fails and how many buyers in the market have those non-negotiables. That's an agent who's actually working. Here's my honest summary on all of this. When buyers go quiet, they're not being difficult. They're just completing a calculation in their head. Location, condition, floor plan, insurance, taxes, and the payment tolerance. They're running all of it against a monthly number that has very little margin for compromise. If the number comes back wrong, they just leave, and the system doesn't require them to tell you why. And if you want to talk through where you actually stand, reach out.